The eighth film, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, is The Hateful Eight. I saw it in gorgeous, ultra, Panavision 70mm The Roadshow, and my review is next. Hey Super Tubers, don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and spread the word about the channel, and find me on these social media platforms. Many of you may not know this, but Pulp Fiction is actually my favorite movie of all time. So whenever Quentin Tarantino puts a movie out, I always go see it. I have pretty much his entire collection on Blu-ray with the exception of Kill Bill, because I am waiting for The Whole Bloody Affair, which we were promised to get this year. But I did go see Hateful Eight, and for those who don't know, this film is actually currently only available in limited theaters. It will be getting a full release in about a couple of weeks. First of the year, I think. Actually, maybe about a week or so. It's going to get a full release. But right now what they're doing is they're doing what's called a traveling roadshow, where certain theaters that can handle 70mm film, not digital, 70mm film, shot in what's called Ultra Panavision, which only a few movies like Ben-Hur and Mutiny on the Bounty were shot in this. The aspect ratio for the film is 276:1, and pretty much what that means, just to break it down for people who might not understand film, is that's basically ultra widescreen. It's basically you see extra stuff on the right and left that you wouldn't normally see. I really had a good time watching this movie. Quentin Tarantino, I don't think that his films are flawless. Personally, I thought that Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are still his magnum opuses. I personally feel that Kill Bill should be watched as one film, because I didn't really appreciate it till I saw both of them together. And I also think Inglourious Basterds was a little bit of a letdown. I know that's a kind of controversial thing to say, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. This movie, though, this was probably my favorite Tarantino movie since probably Kill Bill, if you combine them, if not Jackie Brown. Had a great time watching this. I really enjoyed Django, but I thought this movie was even better. Everything about this film was so amazing. And if you're a fan of historical movies, if you're a fan of Sergio Leone and just kind of that style, that's what Tarantino was kind of, I don't want to say copying, but inspired by. The film looked lush. It looked grandiose. Most of the film took place inside of a cabin. But the way that he shot this movie with those cameras, and I'm not really sure if he used matte paintings or if he actually shot on location. I do think some of these shots were on location in the snow. It was shot back in January. It looked incredible. The costumes were incredible. Technically wise, the movie is picture perfect. Enjoyed it tremendously. But what really, in my opinion, what makes Quentin Tarantino movies so great, and this goes for all his great movies, are the characters. He usually gets some great actors to be in his films, but it's the characters that he writes, and what makes them very unique and interesting is what makes his movies great. And this was a great movie. So basically the plot of the film, without giving too much away, is it's a film about 8 people. Really, it's more like 9, but that's don't want to give anything away. And they're basically stuck inside of a cabin, and nobody trusts anybody. And there's kind of it's considered like a mystery western. It's kind of a mystery going on as far as, who's in cahoots with who and who can you trust. So I don't want to give away anything about the plot, because this movie, much like Force Awakens, you really do need to see this movie in theaters with without knowing too much. Even though the script did leak a few years ago and that whole calamity went down, I didn't read the script, so if you haven't read the script, you'll enjoy the film more. I'll get into some spoilers later on in the video, and I'll give you a warning, but for right now, just talking about the film, really, really enjoyed. Samuel L. Jackson knocks it out of the park again. Kurt Russell, these guys have great chemistry, Kurt Russell and Sam Jackson. Really had a good time. I was really happy as well to see Tim Roth and Michael Madsen come back into the Tarantino family. Of course, they were very important parts of Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino's first big film. And it's good to see them back playing these unique characters. Really enjoyed it. And really the big surprise for me was Channing Tatum. I know a lot of people make fun of Channing Tatum because he's Channing Tatum, but I thought he was great. Like, he fit in with these guys really, really well. Very much enjoyed it. Demián Bichir plays Bob, a.k.a. the Mexican, and I thought it was Tommy Chong there for a minute. I mean, I thought maybe he's a little young to be Tommy Chong, but I can see the inspiration. Jennifer Jason Leigh is Daisy, the prisoner. Not really a spoiler there. She was great. I mean, she was fantastic. And really, what makes this film great is that it's that typical Tarantino where when you watch a movie like this, it's a story unfolding. It's new, but it's Tarantino. Like, it's definitely his style, the way he shot it, the way the dialogue is. Just totally up his alley, but it was new. It was refreshing. It literally, because of the way he shot this movie and the inspiration behind it, it felt like a movie from like the 60s or maybe the early 70s that was pulled into our era. Like, that's honestly how it felt with our actors, even though there's a lot of veterans, you know, in this film. But nonetheless, also Walton Goggins. I think that's how you say his name, right? Goggins. He was great as the sheriff in this movie. I was kind of worried before I saw it that it was going to end up being too much like Django. But there were some similarities, especially with the racism. And that's the one thing I will say about this film. If you're sensitive to like man-on-woman violence or racism, or maybe even homophobia, like if you don't like jokes about oral sex, fellatio, and things like that, this might not be the movie for you, but it's Tarantino. You should kind of be used to that by now if you're not familiar with his work. But nonetheless, everybody knocked it out of the park, and the story was great. I mean, the story kind of unfolds, and I like that Quentin went back to doing that non-linear storytelling. The film, I saw at 70mm. It's a 3-hour and 7-minute version of the film. There was an intermission, a 12-minute intermission in the middle of the movie, and I really enjoy the intermission. The intermission is something that I think most movies over 3 hours, if not all, need to do. Very smart because of two reasons. Number one, if it's a very long movie, it gives you a chance to go take a piss and get a drink and get a refill of popcorn. And number two, because it gives you that break, you won't miss anything. And this is a murder mystery. This movie is basically a mystery, and it ends with a cliffhanger, with a fantastic cliffhanger to part one. And when you're done watching part one, you go take a piss and you come back, and they even do a little mini recap of certain events that you missed, like a little voiceover, which I think the voiceover was done by Quentin Tarantino. I'm not exactly sure, but it sounded like him. So the intermission was a great idea, especially for a film like this where you really have to focus on the dialogue. And that's the other thing, too, about these films. And again, it's typical Tarantino. Tarantino films have a lot of exposition, right? But the language and the verbiage that was used here, I wasn't bored even for a second. So much fun. There was, of course, that dark humor, that dark comedy. I had a great time watching this film. Again, it's very limited release for this version of it, the 70mm. The full, theatrical run would be a different, I believe it's going to be a slightly different cut. There's not too many differences. There's no intermission in that one. It's going to be a little bit shorter. But nonetheless, I've only seen the 70mm one, and I had a great time watching it. It actually came with a cool-ass roadshow engagement program. And, Quentin's a big fan of the history of films, if anybody doesn't know that by now. So he'll do stuff like this. He'll put movies out for roadshows, give you old-school programs, because there were certain movies back in the day that were like this, where you only had a little bit of time to see them. And again, this movie is getting a full release. Miramax or whatever is not going to allow this movie not to get... I believe it's Miramax. I got to double check that, because Miramax does all his movies. The Weinstein Company, that's pretty much Miramax, right? Well, it's the Weinstein Company. They left Miramax, but it's still the Weinsteins. They're not going to put this movie out and have it be, have it just be a short-term thing. But definitely see this film, even if you can't see it in 70mm. I'm going to get to some spoiler stuff right now, so if you don't want to be spoiled, turn the video off, watch the movie, come back. But huge thumbs up for me. Had a great time watching it, had a blast. I was laughing, I was enjoying the characters, the dialogue, and I was very invested in the story. Again, the movie's divided up into 6 chapters, and most of the story is linear, but then one of the chapters is actually goes back to before chapter 1. So it kind of tells you how certain things got there. So it is that typical Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill type of thing. But it works here. It's not really a gimmick. The way he structured this film, you had to do it like that for it to really explain everything to you and keep it fun. It really kept it fun, and it was done at the right time. It was fresh. So again, Quentin Tarantino as a filmmaker has not fallen off. Now, spoilers, okay? fucking love this damn movie. Sam Jackson's promo that he cut about getting his dick sucked from the was it the general's son? That was, it wasn't, I don't know if it was on the level of I don't know if it was on the level of DiCaprio's promo in Django, but it was fantastic, and the way they showed it. And yeah, they actually show dick in this movie. At least I didn't stare, but it looked like something was dangling there. It was hilarious, yo. Hilarious stuff, the way the movie unfolded. Very violent, too, by the way. The scene with the poison, when they're puking up blood, was fucking hilarious. The end of the movie when the bitch is getting hung. You know what it is, guys? This movie feels like a longer Tales from the Crypt episode. It had the wacky music. Of course, the music was done by Sergio Leone's composer. So if you're a fan of the classic Sergio Leone westerns, and by the way, Dragon Ball was heavily inspired by Sergio Leone's western, you know, this film, you know, I think Tarantino purposely wanted to bet this. Ennio Morricone, I don't even know if I said his name right, does the composing. I had heard rumors that there were going to be unreleased tracks from The Thing in this movie, John Carpenter's The Thing. I don't know if that's the case or not, but nonetheless, fucking had such a good time. Michael Madsen was fucking hilarious in his limited, you know, time there. They did these awesome like slow-mos where they slowed down the like the talking, and it made it, because you know anything in slow motion is funny. So I don't want to get into too many spoilers about the movie. I don't want to tell you the entire plot, but 6 chapters. I wasn't bored once. Go see The Hateful Eight. Had a blast. I mean, just the thing about Quentin Tarantino movies is that they're fucking fun. All right, they are fun, and as long as he makes fun movies, he'll always have his fans, and moviegoers always come back. And it was interesting because the movie was very vulgar, very lots of man-on-woman violence, and yet there's a lot of old people in the theater. There were young people, Tarantino fans who knew what the fuck it was. He's always going to have people go see his movies. He's just got that. He's got that director's kind of rub, like the Spielbergs and the Nolans. You know, if he puts a movie out, people are going to go see it. And I'm excited for this one. I can't wait for the Blu-ray to come out. Go watch this movie, The Hateful Eight. Thumbs up from Geekdom, and I'll catch you down the road.